Welcome to Solarpunk Life. Jason, what are we doing this episode?
We are going to do some foraging. It's October, about the middle of October. Fall's in full swing, so we figured we'd get out, hit the areas around my hometown of Winchester, Virginia, and see what kind of fun foods we could forage.
But we're not the experts in foraging, so we're going to bring in some help. So we're going to turn it over now to our experts in the field, Rosey and Rebecca.
So what are we doing today?
We are looking for wild foods.
Why would we be doing that?
There are a couple of different reasons. I think it calls to a primal urge in us to be able to provide for ourselves. It's the same urge that leads us to garden or to hunt, to know that we can provide for ourselves and our families, especially in the year 2020 when we've already seen food shortages. Knowing you can make a meal or supplement from wild sources adds an extra level of security. In the unlikely event you have to face a survival situation in the wild, you'll know that you can take care of yourself. Lots of wild foods have medicinal values as well as extra nutrition that you can't get necessarily from farmed foods. And it's just fun. It adds an extra level of interest when you're out in the woods hiking. You can even do it in your front yard.
So when you're foraging, what are some things you need to be aware of or be careful of? How can we as Solarpunks be respectful of what we're foraging for?
Well, the first and cardinal rule of foraging for wild foods is if you're not 100% sure of what it is, do not eat it. I cannot stress this enough. You may think I'm being extra cautious, but there are things out here that look like other things. One of them is delicious and one of them can kill you. And there are also lots of plants that may not kill you, but you'll have a really crappy weekend if you eat them. For example, Queen Anne's lace is a wild carrot. It's the species that domestic carrots were created from, bred from. And it's pretty tasty. It's a carrot, but it has cousins like water hemlock, poison hemlock, giant hogweed. If you don't know the differences, those other ones can kill you.
Fine. I'm not going to get anything.
All right, so this is, you can probably just put this right in our mouths here. This is,
Hey, that stuff.
yeah, it's that stuff.
Can I test?
Yeah, here.
Give me stuff.
This is wood sorrel. It's tasty and sour. You want some?
Sure.
I would like to give you more.
It's fun
yeah.
to chew.
Oh, that's got some sourness to it.
I recommend getting a guidebook to take with you when you go out. My favorite is Elias and Dykman's Edible Wild Plants of North America. I've had it for years. It's a great resource. It's organized by season, and every plant entry includes not only how to identify, but also how to harvest and how to prepare, and poisonous lookalikes.
Hold on a second.
Funeral bell.
Interesting. All right, let's stop pulling
Mine
it.
wouldn't.
Just let it grow.
I assume it's not edible.
I doubt it.
This is, it looks
Okay.
like poisonous. We're
This
not-
is a mushroom, clearly. It's not an edible mushroom that I know. In my experience, a lot of things that look like mushrooms might actually be really bad for you. A preliminary identification with my app says it's something called funeral bell, which I want to research a little more. One of the fun things about mushrooms, though, you can touch them without too much worry. They're only poisonous if you put them in your mouth.
Right.
There are also some great identification apps you can get. My favorite is Seek by iNaturalist. I have an Android, but I believe it's available for Apple as well. I wouldn't rely solely on an app for something that I was going to eat, but it's a handy backup to confirm identification. With mushrooms, knowing what it looks like underneath the cap, whether it has gills or pores or teeth, can be a great help towards identifying. Let's see if it gives me anything more interesting.
So is there an etiquette for foraging?
There are a few things to keep in mind. The first one is to, basically it all boils down to be respectful of the property owners, the plants, the land, the ecosystem. You always want to make sure you have permission to be wherever you are. If you're on private land, make sure you have permission from the owner. If it's public land, like a state park, national park, rules can vary. Check before you go. There's nothing worse than getting kicked out of somewhere and having to leave your bag of treasures because you didn't check before you went and a ranger got you in trouble. Some state and national parks do allow foraging on their land. Most of them, if they do, it's for personal use. You can't collect 20 pounds of morel mushrooms to sell at the farmer's market, but you can get a few for your personal use. So there are lots of mint relatives that grow wild: catnip, lemon balm, spearmint, peppermint. You can always apple mint.
Yeah.
You can generally recognize them not only by look but by smell. If it looks like mint and it doesn't smell minty, then it's not mint. It might be related, but it's not mint. So this is catnip, which everybody knows for making cats wacky. But Rebecca was just saying what a great sedative it is for people. It makes a nice, relaxing, calming tea. So I'm going to add some of it to our little tea bag here. I'm not going to take all of it, but just a bit. So that brings me to good manners when foraging. Generally, you want to respect your environment however you can. If you find something good but there's only a tiny bit of it, don't take the whole thing, especially if it's something rare or endangered or if wildlife relies on it for food. You want to take just what you need and leave enough for the plant to grow. So I left the roots and the stems here so it'll grow back. Catnip's pretty resilient. I think it'll be fine if we take some leaves. But there are plants that the only edible part is the root, and if you dig it up, the plant is then dead. So don't take everything that you find unless you're in a desperate survival situation. And then when it comes to things like berries and nuts, especially this time of year, wild animals do rely on them. So unless, again, you're in a desperate survival situation, don't take everything you find. The one exception to this rule is invasive plants, some of which we will probably find today. Those are introduced species that are actively crowding out natives and causing trouble. Those ones, I would encourage you to pull up as much as you can and enjoy them. There are some really tasty invasives out there. I just found a really common one here in the mid-Atlantic. It's called garlic mustard. It is introduced and it causes major problems in ecosystems. It contains chemicals in its roots that actively kill other plants. It is a member of the mustard family, fairly easy to identify. It smells like garlic and it's tasty. Pick it and eat it. Another thing for your own safety, don't gather in polluted areas along roadsides, anywhere there might have been pesticide or herbicide use. Basically, you don't want to poison yourself. And some plants are very good at accumulating toxic chemicals. There's one that's mullein is actually sometimes planted on purpose because it pulls heavy metals out of the soil. So needless to say, you don't want to eat something that's accumulating all those nasties. And be very careful because there is poison ivy everywhere back here, which is why we're going to wash all this really, really well. That's a helpful aside. First plant you learn to identify if you live in North America: poison ivy, poison oak, and poison sumac. Wash everything before you eat it. If you eat or touch something and feel sick, stop. If you eat or touch something and you feel really sick, call poison control.
If you do that and you have a sample of whatever it is, you should take it with you.
Yes, they will, especially with mushrooms, they'll want to know exactly what it is you ate so that they know how to treat it.
So where do we go to forage things?
Pretty much any place plants grow, as long as I said, you have permission and it's not along a roadside or in a polluted area. You can do it just about anywhere. Right now we are in an old garden. Most of the decorative plants have been pulled up and it's just gone to weeds. So we've already found some tasty things here. You can also, as I said, you can investigate your local parks. You can look in your backyard. If you're lucky enough to know somebody who has some woods, you can check it out there. You can go just about anywhere plants grow. You can even, as I said, you can make a salad walking through your yard. Start with dandelions and go from there.
What is this?
It's a species of dock. Dock is basically a weed. Lots of the edible things you'll find are commonly considered weeds, and people pull them out or put pesticides or herbicides on them in their gardens. But they're actually tasty and delicious.
So what does this one taste like? It's dock.
It's sort of sour and a little bit bitter. A lot of wild greens are going to be bitter. If you want to eat them raw in a salad, you generally want to do that in the springtime. Later in the season, we'll saute them. And
we're just going to get the leaves?
Just the leaves.
Okay.
So we're going to have lots of different flavors.
Do you want
happening.
The big leaves too? Or should I stick to smaller leaves?
Stick to the smaller ones because they'll be more tender. There goes my trowel.
Stop.
This was a birthday gift and I love it. It's made by a French company, Opinel, and it is a mushroom knife with a little brush on it to brush off doodads. This is my my product plug for the day. This is a chicken of the woods mushroom, Latiporius cincinnatus. This is the first edible mushroom that I learned. That's got thorns on it. And it doesn't really have anything poisonous that looks like it. It grows on rotting wood, not on the ground, and it's like creamsicle orange. If you find something this color and this shape, there's not a lot else that it could be. This one is a little bit old, but I think it'll still be tasty. We'll brush off these crunchy bits, and we're gonna take this guy home. So this is what's called a polypore. It's a kind of fungus that has pores instead of gills. Like I said, grows on rotting wood. These are generally found on oak, but this tree is too old for us to really tell what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, this piece might not. And it grows all around this other stuff, so
I can smell it. It has a nice mushroomy smell to it.
Just gonna cut off this dead wood because we're not going to be able to do anything with that anyway.
Smells good.
We're going to have to really go through this. This one's a little old and it's got some maggots in it. Gross. Let me see if this one's got maggot holes. This one less so.
Yeah.
A little bit here and there. So if we're going to take a mushroom home, we want to make sure that it's fresh and good. I think there's enough of this that's salvageable. I'm probably going to leave this under part because it's full of maggots. So you can't really be a forager if you're squeamish. There's a lesson for you.
Maggots are necessary.
Yep, they are.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. We had a lot of fun making it today.
And eating it.
We got to go out into the field, walk around, see some beautiful scenery. Just absolutely amazing stuff. It was fun to film. And I learned a couple of things. I'm sure Jason probably learned a couple of things.
But the one thing that we have stressed throughout this entire episode is don't put it in your mouth if you don't know what it is.
Don't do it. Just don't do it.
If you have any questions or comments about anything that we've showed you today, feel free to reach out to us at solarpunklife@gmail.com. We'd be happy to look at whatever pictures of whatever you've come up with, whatever you forged for yourself, tell you what we think, give you some advice. This was a lot thrown at them and a lot thrown at you in an episode. We'd be happy to discuss anything that we've thrown out here. If you want our recipes for what you just saw us eat, contact us at solarpunklife@gmail.com.
If you think we did anything wrong, let us know that too, because we can only improve if we get feedback from our fans.
And as always,
do good.
Be good. Subscribe and follow.
Thanks for watching.
Okay.
Tree men are going to get you. Actual sound sync.
Hey, welcome to Solarpunk Life. I'm Jason.
This is Joe. Sorry.